What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We've had a couple of things happen as to the reason that this video is now not being published till an hour after normal premiere on a normal day. So first of all, leave a like. Make sure you guys are subbed through my Idiocracy, so you guys can see the bloopers, obviously, and then also so you guys can keep up to date with the content. We are back to the off-season projections right now, and then eventually we will get into more trades, draft, that sort of stuff. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So we are doing the Charlotte Hornets today. This video should have been out 20 minutes ago, but I published it to then realize that it didn't have sound because I tried to use a new headset. So we are back with this one. But yeah, so Charlotte Hornets. I don't know if underperformed is the right word. They were undermanned. I think that they believed they were initially going into the season with Miles Bridges, even if he was on suspension. But he was not there this season, and then he will be back next season with a suspension. So that at least gives them back their second guy, because 2 years ago he was on the path it looked like to becoming an all-star type player, right? And he matched really, really well with LaMelo. But now they are fourth right now in the current lottery projections. And then also they have pick 27 from a trade. But we're not going to cover a lot of the pick stuff today. Today will be their current free agents and then what I think top free agent acquisitions could possibly be. But let's go ahead and get started with their free agents coming up. So the first one is going to be PJ Washington. He is a restricted free agent. One thing I cannot stress enough is smart contracts, right? I don't feel like it's as much of a thing now as it used to be. But if you guys remember, especially like Timothy Mozgov, Luol Deng deals back in 2016, there's been a lot of contracts that you can tell almost from the initial signing, right? That they just weren't worth it. Personally, for PJ, I wouldn't go above 20. I do like him as a young talent. I do think he has promise. I just don't know. I can't quite picture him in a finals game, right? Not quite there yet. But granted, I understand this team is probably 3 years away, right, from actually competing. So personally, I'm not going probably above 15 to 18, I want to say. Definitely don't want to touch 20. It's definitely not the route I'm looking for, right? Next guy is going to be Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre is unrestricted. Again, don't overpay. If you want to give Kelly Oubre a 2 or 3 year deal, I think that's fine as long as it's like 10 to 12 million per. I wouldn't go any longer, and I wouldn't go really anything above 12. I think he's a solid player. I don't think he's necessarily a championship player. But I just think, again, this team needs to build on the talent it already has and not let talent necessarily walk out the door if it's the right price. You know what I mean? Next guy is going to be Theo Maledon. He is a restricted free agent. If you can keep him on the lower end, obviously, I doubt probably close to a minimum, my guess. I think he at least for the next couple of years can be a guy to kind of fill in spot minutes and just kind of mainly compete in practice, maybe get a little bit of shine here and there, right? Svi Mikhailuk is an unrestricted free agent. Personally, I'm letting him walk. We've seen him with a couple different organizations at this point, especially with having 2 picks in the first round. I don't necessarily want him there to take up any minutes. So while I think he's an okay player, I don't think he's a great player. I think he's a terrible player. Personally, I think you just free up that roster spot and allow your guy later in the first round. As long as you do your due diligence and draft a good player at that point, let him get kind of some of that shine. The last guy that they have, and possibly the most important one, because this is the most Charlotte thing you can do, right? Dennis Smith Jr. Unrestricted free agent. He was out of the league. He came in. He performed, I would say, relatively well. I would also say that knowing Charlotte, they will probably overpay him. While I don't necessarily totally agree with the stance of flash in the pan for him, I did see some things I liked. I did see some things I don't like. But I do think he has at least the athleticism. Hopefully at this point, maybe he has the maturity. And I just think that overall, he could fit well as like a bench point guard for this team, right? So anywhere from 8 to 10, I want to say, would be like the absolute highest on like a 1 year deal. I don't think he's going to go that high. I think he's probably closer to 3 to like 6 mil per for like 2 or 3 years. I think would be a good deal for him, just to kind of give him a chance to really grow and develop. He's already been in the system for a year, so maybe another year under his belt, and he can really kind of help push this team forward. Now, as far as cap space and free agents, I would look to target. As of right now, Charlotte is projected 31.3 million in cap. That is obviously not including a Kelly Oubre deal, a PJ Washington deal, any of those guys. If PJ Washington signs for a lot, then obviously that could factor into that. But team needs for this team. Wings, I feel like their center position is pretty good. And not pretty good as in it has like the best available talent and don't look to go above the current talent, right? I think Mark Williams is solid. I don't know if he will be a top 5 center in his career, but I do think that he at least has proven that he'll be a good center in this league, right? Granted, I wish he would have played more this year because of, I believe it was Mason Plumlee, who is now on the Clippers, but Steve Clifford is Steve Clifford, and he doesn't like to play young guys. I do also like the bounce of Kai Jones. I don't necessarily know if I love Kai Jones in full, but I understand the vision of him with a LaMelo Ball player, right? Talent, again, this team was at the bottom for a reason. It's not just because LaMelo missed games. It's not just because of Miles. It's just because while the league is more talented, obviously there's going to be some guys that are higher on the list, some guys that are lower, and Charlotte just didn't have enough of the guys a little bit higher on the list, right? Defense, obviously, LaMelo, despite his size, is not always going to be a great defender. Hopefully maybe that comes once he gets a little later in the career, once he gets more into his prime. But as of right now, you don't necessarily have a plus defender at his position. So you need to surround him with plus defenders. And as I say, for every single team, you need good vets, right? I've said that for every team we've covered so far. I will continue to say it. Vets that bring a winning culture, vets that just push your players to be better on a day-to-day basis, right? Now, the first guy, I initially had this list completed about right before Shams sent out his tweet on the Dillon Brooks situation with Memphis on how they won't bring him back under any circumstances. I think it's a little harsh. But, the fact that he's a free agent, unrestricted, at least now, instead of us being like, well, he might get re-signed, it seems like it's pretty clear he's out. Personally, I would like him in Charlotte, even if it's on a 3-year deal, just to, again, try and bring some sort of winning culture back to this team. I understand he's not going to be a great three-point shooter. It's not going to be a consistent three-point shooter, right? You're going to have days he's 5 for 7. You're going to have days he's 1 for 14. It's just what comes with the territory. But I think just a defender, grit, he's going to hustle in practice. He's going to hustle in the games. He may talk a little trash, and it might be a little unwarranted. But I just think you just need a culture guy there, right? And I think that's a good start. Next guy I have is Gary Trent Jr. He does have a player option. I don't know if he stays in Toronto, and even if he doesn't, I think personally there's going to be a pretty big market for him. But not necessarily as an on-ball defender. I like him kind of as more, obviously, the lanes. He's really good at tipping passes, anticipating passes, and he's a good spacer, right? I just think that those things put together, I understand he's not going to be a plus defender, but as long as he can hold up defensively, I think he'll be okay. Another guy I haven't mentioned for any other teams yet, Caris LeVert. This kind of goes to my bringing in floor raisers, right? I think Caris maybe got a little bit too much put on his plate after his injuries and coming into Cleveland. I don't think he'll be a great defender. He could be passable at times. But I think as far as a secondary ball handler, secondary initiator, a scorer, I think he could come into Charlotte and really shine in that role, especially if you look to possibly move on from Terry Rozier, as you might be able to get Caris LeVert on a shorter, more team-friendly deal. Next guy I have is Patrick Beverley. You saw what he did for Chicago. I understand Chicago didn't make the playoffs. But I just think as far as pushing your stars to be better, pushing them to compete, pushing the whole team to compete, I just think that Patrick Beverley can bring that to you. I understand you probably have to overpay a little bit for Pat Bev just because he's going to want to go to a contender. But I think bringing him in as a culture guy would be a huge benefit to this team. Torrey Craig, I understand. Again, this is not going to be a guy that's starting for you every night, right? This could be a guy coming off the bench, spared minutes. He's been around winning teams, though. At some point, you just need guys to come into this situation and just inject a winning culture, right? And I think he can do that for you without necessarily breaking the bank. Another guy I think would be a really good pickup. I doubt he leaves Denver, but Bruce Brown. I understand he has a player option. You saw what he did in Brooklyn. You saw what he's done in Denver. I think as far as a cutter, an effort guy, a defender, especially next to LaMelo, I really like the fit. I just don't know if he leaves Denver just because of how good of a winning situation it is. But as far as, again, a floor raiser, a defender, I'm going to say the same words a lot because a lot of these teams down here need the same things. But I think that he would be a really good fit for Charlotte. Last two here, I've got Harrison Barnes, unrestricted free agent. I don't know if Sacramento brings him back. I feel like it's one of their bigger decisions because I'm wondering if they believe that Keegan Murray slides into his slot. But personally, I think that Harrison Barnes, again, he's been around winning. He's been in winning cultures. Might have sold a little bit in the finals. But I think all in all, he, again, is a floor raiser, and you could play him next to Miles Bridges, right? You can have Miles play your 3, Harrison plays your 4, maybe even a little bit of a bench role at times. I just think that, again, a vet, passable defensively, passable offensively. I just think he would bring something to this team needs. Last guy is kind of a swing for the fence. Draymond Green. Depending on what route Golden State takes this offseason. I think that maybe if you want to sign Draymond, obviously it's going to have to be a bigger number, but even if you do a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal with like a team option, and just say, hey, Draymond, we need a culture reset here. We need you to come in, free reign, do what you got to do, reset this culture, get us on the right path. I don't know how many people would listen to him because it's not Golden State. But I do understand the idea of teams thinking he can come in, reset our culture, give us a hard reset, and put us on the right path, right? That's my last guy. The last thing I will say is personally, with the possibility of Jordan selling this team, we obviously don't know how much it's going to go for. That's still up in the air. But the other thing I would say is if I am a new owner, I do consider the fact of looking at a new GM. Draft picks haven't been great. Personally, there were a couple of picks. I understand hindsight's 2020, but even in the limited that I had seen, I personally was more of a Jalen Duren fan over Mark Williams. And then just a couple other draft picks. It just hasn't gone great for that front office, right? And then I feel like Steve Clifford was more of a Jordan decision than a front office decision. But personally, I would let Steve Clifford go. Look at Mike D'Antoni for like 2 to 3 years. Just because I think if you put in Mike D'Antoni, it's less of a building process and it's more of LaMelo fits the system right away. You might be able to jumpstart your rebuild a little bit, right? And you're looking at closer to a play-in push. If you want to go the long route and really build a culture, Kenny Atkinson, I understand he turned down the job at the last minute last year, but I think Kenny Atkinson, maybe 1 or 2 other assistants off of Golden State's bench, and then just kind of nitpick assistants around the league, right? You want guys from like Will Hardy's staff. You want guys from Greg Popovich's staff. Just somebody that's young enough that's going to bring the energy every day. That's going to make this team care defensively, right? I think that's the biggest issue with this team right now is caring defensively. But yeah, that is the video. I appreciate you all sticking around. And I will catch you guys in the next one. The next one's going to be the Blazers. And the Blazers will be kind of a different video because that one I feel like is a real fork in the road team. But I appreciate everybody coming through. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.